For a long time, and even more so since President Donald Trump's return to the White House last year, Europe has endured Trump's complaints that it's a complacent continent hiding under America's security guarantee. For instance, last year, Trump effectively forced the hands of his NATO allies to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, after criticizing member states for essentially not pulling their weight. Trump even sent shockwaves throughout Europe when he suggested that the US may forfeit Article 5 and refuse to defend a country being attacked if it was not reaching its spending targets. NATO spending aside, Trump also started a trade war with the EU, threatened Greenland with annexation, has slashed US support for Ukraine, and moved to push Kyiv towards an as-yet uncertain peace deal. Yet, as he now pursues the first open-ended military campaign of his presidency, he's found himself needing Europe's support, namely its military bases, as well as its defense supplies and expertise. So in this video, we're going to take a look at why, despite Trump's constant Europe bashing, his war in Iran proves that America really does need Europe. Pope Leo was ranked 14th in our list of the world's most influential people. So in the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long, we discuss how the first American pope may be positioning the Vatican as a subtle counterweight to MAGA nationalism, from immigration to AI. That's just one of the 72 pages in the magazine, because as always, there's more to Too Long than you'd expect. Purchase your copy by clicking the link in the description. First, and most obviously, the US needs access to military bases in Europe in order to reach targets in the Middle East in the first place. For context, tens of thousands of US troops have been stationed across Europe since the Cold War, on around 50 bases, the bulk of which are concentrated in the centre of Europe, primarily Germany, Italy, and Poland. And the US has used European bases in past Middle East offences. After the September 11th attacks, European bases and logistics networks were essential for transporting troops, aircraft, and supplies to wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Facilities such as the Ramstein Air Base in Germany and the Naval Air Station Sigonella in Italy became key hubs for airlift, refueling, and intelligence operations during these conflicts. A few years later, in 2012, amidst violence following the toppling of Gaddafi in Libya, the US consulate in Benghazi came under attack, and 4 Americans were murdered, including the US ambassador. In response, and as the situation in Libya worsened, a Marine response strike team was permanently based in Morón, Spain, which hosts a US base that was used heavily during the Gulf War, enabling the US military to quickly react to any future attacks in the Middle East. More recently, preceding Israel's 12-day war in Iran last year, the US again relied on bases in Europe to stage aircraft refueling and to move fighter and transport planes towards the Middle East. At the start of the US's current war with Iran, the US immediately requested permission for its military to use European bases to carry out strategic operations and strikes in Iran. However, due to the question of legality regarding the US attack, not all European leaders have been so quick to allow the US to use bases in their countries. The Italian government said that any potential request from Washington would need to be carefully assessed. France authorized a temporary presence of American aircraft at certain bases, but reportedly secured guarantees that the planes wouldn't be used to carry out strikes on Iran. Meanwhile, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who's repeatedly butted heads with Trump, namely after refusing to accept the US president's call for European NATO members to increase their defense spending, outright denied the US permission to use its military bases in Rota and Morón to attack Iran, calling the US's actions an unjustified and dangerous military intervention, which prompted the US to withdraw 15 military aircraft from the base. Trump slammed Sanchez's government as terrible and unfriendly over its decision to bar US military planes from using Spanish air bases to attack Iran, before threatening to cut all trade with Spain, the EU's 4th biggest economy. Trump also launched quite a personal attack on British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who did not allow US forces to use US bases in British territory, including Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, for offensive strikes on Iran because of doubts over their legality. Trump complained that the UK's denial of permission meant that US planes had to fly many extra hours, and belittled Starmer further, saying that he is not Winston Churchill. While the UK has since changed its position, allowing the US to use its bases for, quote, defensive strikes, and announcing that one of its 2 flagship aircraft carriers has been placed on high readiness, Trump responded with a jab at the UK and Starmer, posting on Truth Social that the carrier was no longer needed and that we don't need people that join wars after we've already won. Nevertheless, over the weekend and on Monday, B-52 bombers landed at the UK's military base in Gloucestershire. It's not just European bases that the US needs, though. It may also need European military resources. In a closed-door briefing this week, senior military officials told lawmakers that the US military might struggle to intercept every drone and ballistic missile attack unleashed by Iran across the Gulf, and acknowledged lawmakers' concerns about the burning through of said interceptors. Even Trump, who claimed that the US had a virtually unlimited supply of medium and upper medium grade munitions, said at the highest level, we have a good supply, but we are not where we want to be. During last year's conflict with Iran, reports suggested that the US had used roughly 25% of its THAAD interceptor stockpile. And the heavy usage forced the US to temporarily freeze the transfer of some munitions to Ukraine in the weeks that followed. As such, the US is looking to its allies to help supply them with interceptors, most notably, and surprisingly enough, Ukraine. Early on after the Russian invasion, Ukraine sometimes used expensive missiles or even more expensive Patriot interceptors, which cost around $13.5 million, to knock down Russian drones and missiles. However, this proved economically unsustainable, so Ukraine adapted, using heavy machine guns, less expensive rockets fired by F-16s, electronic jammers, and new interceptor drones built by Ukraine. Ukraine can now destroy most of Russia's drones, and the US now wants a piece of Kyiv's newfound expertise. According to Zelensky, who Trump once called a dictator with no cards to play, the US and other Gulf countries are reportedly exploring deals to purchase Ukrainian-made interceptors capable of destroying Iranian drones. Most recent reports say that Ukraine has sent interceptor drones and a team of drone experts to protect US military bases in Jordan. Although Zelensky has made clear that Ukraine's support is contingent on the fact that it doesn't weaken Ukraine's own defenses, and that Ukraine should get more diplomatic clout and support from the US for its ongoing peace negotiations with the Kremlin. While Trump's entry into the war in Iran has drawn many comparisons with Iraq in 2003, one key difference is that then-President George W. Bush attempted to build a public case for the invasion and managed to pull together a coalition of the willing that included many European countries. The same cannot be said for Trump's war with Iran, and if anything, the lack of outright European support highlights how much the US needs Europe. Now, if you're one to binge watch our videos, or in fact any news recently, it's very understandable that you might feel as though the world isn't super safe right now. You're probably doing all you can to at least feel in control of your online security. You're adding an extra 1 or capital letter to your passwords. But is that always enough? Well, luckily our sponsor this week, NordVPN, takes your safety seriously and expertly works to protect all of your data online. It's an unfortunate reality that online scams and phishing attacks are on the rise right now. With us getting bombarded with emails from our banks, social media accounts, and constant newsletters we forgot we even signed up to, it's easier than ever to click the wrong thing. But with NordVPN's certified anti-phishing tool, you don't need to worry about your online safety being compromised, as their Threat Protection Pro feature detects at least 85% of phishing websites, blocking millions of scams every single month. Even if one slipped through and you did reach a suspicious website, NordVPN's data encryption tools will protect against a number of other attacks, like malicious man-in-the-middle data breaches and intense DDoS attacks. And don't worry, if you're concerned about past sensitive information being compromised, NordVPN's dark web monitoring is always scanning for your details and passwords, and can actively notify you before you even notice. Their super handy NordPass feature will even upgrade those old passwords for you, and keep them all organized and safe in one place. NordVPN isn't just the fastest VPN on the planet, it's a much needed shield to protect you from all of the threats that exist online. So if cybersecurity is as important to you as it is to us, sign up to NordVPN today. Simply click the link in the description or go to nordvpn.com/TLDR, and not only will you get a massive discount, but you'll also get 4 extra months totally free. There's no better time to protect yourself, so once again, that's nordvpn.com/TLDR, and it's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee.